drive change. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me if I talk like this or if I need to use the microphone. Okay, good. So it's going to be presented by me, of course, and welcome to me, as I always say. My name is Krystle Solomon. I am a marketing automation strategist and privacy compliance specialist at a company called Circonte. And Circonte is US based. However, we do have engagement managers and consultants based in the UK and Canada as well. We're a team of about 70, and I've been with them a little over a year. I do have 10 plus years experience in the marketing communication space. My undergraduate degree is in broadcast journalism and speech communications, so I have a lot of experience there. With the most recent 2+ years doing marketing and CRM automation implementations and migrations and support work, focused mainly on Pardot and Sales Cloud. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm 4-time Salesforce certified, but as I say to everyone when I kick off a project, that doesn't mean that I know everything. So, of course, you know there are people who are 32 times certified that are still learning as well. So, in this presentation, it's all about secret levels to awareness to leveling up your communication. And the reason why I ask for your feedback is because we have people from different walks of life that have learned how to communicate differently based on your culture or your environment. And so this presentation's goal isn't to tell you this is the only way to communicate, but the presentation hopefully will give you another way to think about how you can maybe add to your way to communicate, either in the workplace, obviously professionally, we're at a professional conference, but you can also take this with you in your personal life as well. I think these are exchangeable ideas. So there are going to be 3 tools that I'm going to discuss today. The first is going to be the 5 whys. And when we think about the 5 whys, the first tool, you can see this diagram kind of gives us a stair-step approach to the 5 whys. And that's really the idea of the 5 whys. It really is a way to continuously ask underlying or additional questions to get to the underlying or root cause of the conversation or the situation. So I think staying at the surface level where you have the problem of somebody maybe ran through a red light, right? That would be the surface level. And then you would go a step further and say, well, why? Why did they run that red light? Well, they were late for work. Now, most people stay there and say, okay, I'll accept that answer. But there are additional steps that I encourage you to take in your professional communications to take it even a step further and to continue down to those additional whys. I like to call it the tell me more game, right? It's a way for you to continuously say, well, tell me more about that. You know, you're working with a developer or you're working with a product manager and some teammate of yours that presents to you a problem or maybe a feature or something, and you basically just maybe accept it on the surface, but then you want to know, well, what is really behind that change, or what is behind that idea? And you continuously maybe get to the root cause of maybe their manager is on the hot seat for producing some type of metric or number, and that is the real driving cause behind this particular product being implemented into the system. So it's going beyond the surface of the initial problem or conversation to get to the root cause. So after going through those whys, right, maybe you might have some additional questions that need answering. So you really want to stick with that investigation mode and really use some additional W's. I'm sure you all are very familiar with these, right? The what, who, when, where, and the 1H, which is the how. You really want to think about even including these on top of those 5 whys to even further that investigation so that you can get a clearer picture of the consequences and core issues. I remember I was at another conference, it's called Dreaming in Color. It's the first ever Salesforce event focused on bringing Black and African American professionals together in Raleigh, North Carolina. And one of the speakers, she talked about asking the question why during her discovery session of why this changed now. And I thought, wow, what a mind-blowing additional question to ask during my discovery session with a new particular client or someone where we're kicking off a project, again, going to that initial 5 whys tier where, well, yeah, this project is being presented to me, but why now? Obviously, this problem maybe has been going on for a longer amount of time, and so I want to know exactly why we're doing this now and why the change now. Why wasn't it done, a few months ago, or maybe why maybe not next year? And so you can use that as a starting point, and then continuously use those additional tools or W's to get to that root core issue. So the second tool I want to introduce to a way to level up your communication is going to be a tool called leveraging silence. See what I did there? I paused for a second to see how you would feel. Did you feel any tension of, gosh, I really wish you would go ahead and say the next word. I'm a little uncomfortable. I love this tool here. Silence is a way to really move a conversation forward, believe it or not, even though it feels like it's standing still. So really change involves that tension, right? Of, gosh, I want something to continuously move. Maybe I'm uncomfortable with the silence because it makes me feel a little awkward, a little weird, right? When you're staring at someone and you're waiting for them to say the next word. And most of us will jump in, or they'll either run away and end the conversation because we are very uncomfortable just pausing, right? And just waiting for the moment in between. So one of the things about silence is the tension may or may not work, It's a risk, for sure. But I encourage you, if you want to think about ways to grow your communication skills, use the power of silence in your conversations, right? I don't know how many of you, raise your hand if you do consulting work at all, so you're constantly talking with clients about, their different issues throughout the day, throughout the week, via email and via probably Zoom or WebEx or some kind of video chat. Really, the video chat is the best way as a consultant to add this tool to your tool belt to level up your effective communication as a consultant. We had a company team meeting a couple of months ago. We had a speaker come in, and she actually said the opposite of what I'm saying, was saying that you don't want any dead air when you're on a video chat. It's the worst thing that can happen. And of course, I raised my hand and I said, I actually disagree with that. I think silence is actually a very powerful tool that you can use to create things. Yes?
Silence is like a why, because when you stay silent, the client thinks that his answer is not complete. So he or she will just continue the answer. So
yes,
it's one more way, so you don't.
I love it.
You don't use the 5 whys.
Yes.
It's like a experiment.
I love that. It's the Joker card almost. Like if your card player is the law card, and it allows that invitation of basically you can almost get that information. I think I want to say the next slide here really is number 1. It builds that trust for the other person you're talking with to give you involuntary information, right? You become a safe space for the person you're communicating with to say, wow, they're allowing me a space to enter, and I'm going to now voluntarily take that step because there's trust that's involved, because this person feels really comfortable sitting in the silence, right? They're not trying to manipulate or control the conversation, and that's what I love about silence. But it takes you being comfortable as well, right? If you're restless or you're anxious because maybe you feel like you don't really know what you're doing, right? And you're scared you might be found out. I don't know, is the phrase imposter syndrome something you use in Morocco? Is that a phrase? I want to make sure I'm translating that right. But it's something that we say in the U.S. where you feel like if you don't know something, you'll get found out. Somebody will find out that you don't know something, and it might be negative consequences. So you wrestle and we scramble trying to basically compensate and make up for your lack of knowledge. Well, if you're okay with saying, you know what, I'm okay with what I don't know, I'm going to sit and remain, that is the first step to leveraging silence, right? You have to really be comfortable with your limitations and what you can do first. Okay? What it also does is emphasizes a point, and to your point, it empowers others, number 3, to get that answer. So you were peeping into my PowerPoint presentation already, so kudos to you for doing that. But all that really leads up to those 4 key areas there. The third tool that I want to talk about wrapping up here is going to be the art of framing. Okay? And what framing is going to be a way for you to take what's typically negative speech or communication and focus in on the positive speech. How can I take essentially what is negative and reframe it in a way that is positive? It's not disingenuous or not true, but you're finding a way to make it palatable or easy for someone to receive, right? So here are some examples, right? The first one says, let's focus in on what can be done. All right, the negative statement would say, I can't meet with you tomorrow morning because I'm booked. How many people have said that just in their conversation, right? What we say with reframing is, you know what, tomorrow afternoon works better for me. Would a 2 p.m. meeting fit your schedule, right? This is a good email reframe, right? We often think about as consultants, this is when you're doing the text format of communication, as you know, even on your phones, right? Intentions aren't always communicated through the written language. So it's very important to consider something like framing and positive spin in your written language, right? In your emails that you do with your coworkers or your clients and the people that you work on your projects with, as a way to fill in that gap, okay? There's a good book that I've read called Difficult Conversations, and I'm referencing my phone to make sure I don't mess up the lesson that I learned from this book, and it talks about intentions are invisible and complex, right? So you might be thinking, okay, my intention wasn't to be negative, right? But it's invisible to the person you're communicating with. So they don't know your intention, that it wasn't meant to be negative. All they receive is what you said to them. So because of that, we encourage you to reframe and think about, how am I giving some maybe not so good or negative communication to someone in a way that will be received so that the message gets reached across and it won't get lost in the connotation. The next one here is going to be on another use case where it says, unfortunately the company is out of office Friday and Monday, so the positive reframe is, can we meet on Tuesday? I'm available at any time that day. The company will be out of office on Monday, observing the upcoming holiday. Sorry, that formatting got a little wonky there. Okay, so just providing a little bit more information. And this is just the last example here. The attached file in your email is wrong, right? Automatic wrong. Now, to reframe that, please recheck the attached file in your email, okay? This is a way you can be diplomatic in your communication at work so that you don't get a really nasty email back and someone getting very angry, and now you've escalated a situation that could have been solved by just reframing with some positive speech. All right, so here's some practical prompts. You all look like you're ready to get interactive. So going back to the 5 whys, let's practice. Think of a problem that's happened in your personal life and begin to ask yourself why questions about it. And if you have ideas, if you get stuck or anything like that, let me know. But what I want to do is, if you're comfortable, find someone else in the room and run through these business examples and life examples over the next 5 minutes. So maybe you two can pair up, you three can pair up, you two. And if you want to just kind of talk about how you would reframe it, I'm going to go ahead and let you break and do that right now. So use these and talk about how you would reframe it. Right. I'm gonna let the back two go. It sounds like some other front people are good to go. I would love to hear if anybody's ready to share their 5 whys in the last minute or two. Any volunteers? Any good why questions that you had? Who picked the life example?
They're always very specific to the situation, I think.
That's a good point. Yes. Did you make up a specific example?
Yes, we don't remember the why.
Okay, but did you get to the root cause? Did you get
No,
to
because,
a deeper level?
I don't know what my colleague feels. She feels that as well, but we feel like there is like an infinite.
It could keep going.
Yeah, it keeps going. So there is no really root cause.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's also a good point.
Unless we have to go to the 10th one, but we don't go so far.
That's a really good point. Some of the times it goes beyond 5, right? Depending on the situation or the person, it also takes them being able to unlock their answer, right? Sometimes you need a little bit more questions to get to that, but it could go further. I do like that point there. But you kind of get the idea and the concept, all right? For the sake of time, we won't practice some of this, but basically you can maybe do this as a takeaway. The next time that you're on the telephone with someone, friend or actual colleague professionally, why don't you say nothing on the phone for 3 seconds, 10 seconds, or 12 seconds and see what happens. I would love for you to do that as a takeaway and see if any of what we talked about today causes any of the things like more trust or answers or you being able to really create a space for someone to feel like they can move a conversation forward in a direction you didn't think it was going to go, but in a good way. All right, and some things to think about, right? When you have observed someone really maybe using silence effectively. I don't know if you have a good person that you work with that does a really good job of this on your job. Listen to them a little bit more and start taking up pointers from them and saying, oh, I really like when they pause there. I love listening to speakers because I can really listen to when they take a pause, right? And when they just keep going with the sentence and the narrative. This is something to encourage you to take away as well. And think about when you personally have maybe not used silence effectively and how it maybe didn't help with moving the project forward or the conversation via email forward. Well, not email, but probably via video chat. And, so just continue to try to ask the probing questions and make sure that you are okay with being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right, of not saying the word. And lastly, some practice related to positive spin. If you can think of a real life example, you can also do these as takeaways, right, and try some of these suggested prompts when somebody asks you, or if you're in a situation where basically you're being asked, did you do something, and a lot of us are going to be saying something like, well, I forgot. Maybe find a way to reframe that and communicate what maybe happened for you to forget, right? It also kind of goes back to the 5 whys. You can probably use a little bit of 5 whys when you're reframing because you have to get a little bit further into your own internal conversation so that you have a way to reframe a negative situation. But that's a good takeaway for you to do as well. So in review, we talked about 3 tools that really help level up your communication here, right? So use these 3 tools, the 5 whys, leveraging silence, and the art of framing here to really uncover the root cause, finding out what the source issue is, adding a little bit of silence in there. You choose the amount of seconds depending on how comfortable you feel you could be in silence. Right? It might take a little bit of baby steps, maybe just 3 seconds for now, and then as you're practicing it better, you can add a little bit more at the right time. And of course, framing, and so that we can make sure that our intentions behind what we really want to communicate are not invisible to our recipient of that communication, and we're able to break down the complexity of that intention via reframing in a way that communicates something in a positive way. So, any questions about, again, maybe one way or a couple of ways to,
Is this time
yes.
for the next session?
Oh, 5:10? I thought we did 5:10.
I don't know, sorry.
That's okay. We're wrapping up anyways. So any questions? Again, this is just a few tools and just one way to think about. And I would love to hear a lot of your feedback as Moroccans, how you experience communication in the workplace. Some things that you have learned today that are new maybe or different. I would love to personally hear any of your feedback so that I can take it back to my team and say, well, here's what they said over here. So any questions or comments? Doesn't have to be a question, maybe just a comment. Would love to hear how you thought about the tools or the presentation.
I think one very common part that happens as well in terms of communication is with clients who go all over the place and not respecting what we intended to talk and then in the first place.
Yes.
And so it's very hard to stay organized in these kinds of meetings and workshops. It is difficult to refrain, not to refrain, but to make the customer understand that today we are here to discuss this and not these other things.
Yes.
Or we just have to say everything he has in your mind.
Yes.
But that's not how you can really structure your interaction.
Correct. And one of the ways we do that is by setting an agenda. So we, as a person who's an engagement manager at my company, and I have a plate full of clients, and they're all range, personalities, different types of businesses. And one of the ways that I approach that very same problem is by setting an agenda, either at the previous meeting and saying on the next meeting we're going to talk about 1, 2, and 3. And when the meeting starts, I'm going to immediately take control. I'm going to ask them how they're doing, obviously going to human connection. And then I'm going to say, hey, here's the agenda for today. Does anybody have any issues with what we're going to talk about? Or do you have anything that is taking priority today that we need to reshape our conversation? And then after they say yes, and we start the first topic, and they start going left, I revisit the agenda and I said, are we going to continue to cover these items on the agenda that we agreed upon today to get the boundaries back in place? Because again, it's sabotaging our time and we can't move forward. So those are hopefully some tips to just set an agenda, stick with the agenda, remind the person of the agenda, and that's one way to do it to help. Any other questions? I think we have 5 minutes left. I would love to just hear what are some struggles that you experience in your workplace from a communication standpoint here living in Morocco, working in Morocco. I would love to hear anybody's comments on workplace communication, if you feel it can be better, what ways can communication be better?
I would like to thank you for the tip, the positive framing. I mean, with the workload and the stress, we tend to communicate in the shortest way possible. As you said in your example, your attached file is wrong. So adding that little bit of dose of empathy and positivity can add a lot to our communication.
Yes, I agree. And you'd be surprised how someone's disposition will change, and they'll get friendlier and warmer, and again, it'll be a much more enjoyable interaction. And to me, it makes it more human, right? It's not just, we're just doing a transaction, right? We're here to just transact. We're here to make connections with people, and part of that, we do have to go a little bit further than just, point A to point B. So thank you. All right. I won't pull any more out of you. Thank you so much for today. And we have one final announcement. Please, we're going to pass out a little bit of flyers if you're interested. We have a virtual conference at Surcante called March Dreamin'. It's going to be in about a week and a half or so, and you can join, and their sessions are recorded, so even if you can't join live, you can certainly go back at your leisure to take a look at it if you're interested hire you. So please, if you're interested, my colleague over here has some flyers for you today. So thank you again.